Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 192 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. Thanks for joining us. This episode is going to be kind of a throwback. I've done a lot of things with the podcast and I've tried out different things to see what works and going back and forth. And most recently, viewers primarily see the videos happening with interviews and audio, obviously, which most people listen to. Where I'm interviewing people. And now that I'm doing the magazine, I'm interviewing a lot of authors. I have this thing where I keep track of all the news that happens. I have a segment where, every month or two I go back and just go through the news that's happening. But back in the day, 3 or 4 years ago, I did this thing where every week I'll write down something, all the things I learned about immigration law during that week, and I'll just talk about it on a Sunday night. And that was really popular. And I have a lot of people who are new immigration lawyers, especially, or want to be immigration lawyers who watch this show and they go back and listen to those. So they get a kick out of it. So I thought I'd get back into that. And I'm not sure why I stopped because it's just a matter of me writing down things I learned. And then going back, like once I get 10 or 11 things and just doing a recording of that. So that's what we're going to do today. That named is Thoughts on Law and Practice. So it's just a free flow, a semi-free flow. There's some organization of what I'm talking about. But I think this kind of stuff helps the most if you're an immigration attorney because it's literally the meat and potatoes of it. I have to say this is general education only. I could be wrong. Things could change. Every office is different. There's a lot of different things going on. So be prepared for that. It's not intended for consumers listening to this. This is just general thoughts for practicing people in the field. But before getting started, I want to remind people about the Immigration Lawyers magazine. It's a hard worked process to get an issue out. We're running a little bit late, but we'll probably have the next issue number 2 out this week. And then we're going to do a special issue on O1A visas, probably, a month and a half, 2 months after that. That's going to keep me busy. That's upcoming. But definitely check it out by going to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. And if you end up watching this live, I'm doing this live, feel free to throw a comment in there for those watching live through the social media pages. But I especially want to thank, we got a bunch of new sponsors, so that's really cool. It's been a success, both the viewership of the magazine, people reading it, and my analytics, I could track and see if people are really reading it, and we get the feedback by emails too, but also the amount of support from sponsors. And first and foremost, DocuWise has been always so kind, supporting both the podcast and the magazine. DocuWise is a software I use for immigration processing and forms. It's also got all sorts of management, case management stuff, office management. If you go to www.dockwise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast and use the code Immigration Lawyers Podcast, you get an additional 10% off your annual plan. So it's something to use. And in the next issue, we have a couple different pages about them. One thing they add in there, I told them to give this, like just having a list of all the new software and capabilities they're added to their systems within the last 6 months. People see just how fascinating it is. In between them, like one of our sponsors also is Immigration Immi Translated. They created a system that connecting their system so you could do translations within it. I haven't tried it out myself yet. I haven't had a case to need that yet. But that's fascinating. They're thinking like so much ahead in the future. So that's awesome. I also want to thank ILRC, which, it goes without saying, everyone knows who ILRC is. If you're an immigration attorney, you've done research on Google and found their pages of free information. It's definitely a good service that's out there. They've become a sponsor. ILRC has great training programs. I'm going to read off some of them for you so you have an idea, especially for those who aren't familiar. They have, like, one thing they just released is the updated 4th edition of DACA, the Essential Guide. You think DACA, the Essential Guide? I was talking with Kevin Gregg about this. Like, we're still talking about DACA, unfortunately. You think they have a path to citizenship at this point, but they don't. And so we still have to deal with DACA. And so it's really good to know it because it's reopened and you can file new DACA cases. So that's a great thing they released out there to help people. DACA Essential Guide. They also have webinars, which is one of the main things they do. And they have topics all over the place from public charge, asylum, marijuana, and immigration, U visas, humanitarian cases, removal defense. Just go to ilrc.org/webinars and check out a lot of information there. They also have things about determining eligibility of a DACA, a separate page, EAD eligibility for asylum applicants, which has been in the news because they've been changing that up. So it's a great system. It's something I definitely recommend going to for their information and updates. A lot free and has some paid programs as well, which I recommend. But the best thing probably to do first and foremost is to subscribe on their newsletter so they get updated when it happens. So just go to ilrc.org/subscribe and do that there. And I want to thank them so much for supporting the show. And finally, because we have so many people that are becoming immigration lawyers and want to become. I mean, the field is going fast, and I get the emails because I have a program where I train people coming into immigration law how to do a marriage immigration case. I call it the Champions for Freedom program. The idea is you become the champion for yourself, your own freedom, by having the ability to make good money doing a good case, and then from there you help those people get their freedom to and come to the United States. I view U.S. the land of the free, with all the scars and all the stuff we have. And so the course also talks about inadmissibility in a detailed way. One of my students who actually went through the marriage agreement process themselves told me in our office hours 2 days ago, they're like, I didn't realize this particular student visa thing had inadmissibility issues and how that works. So it was really cool that we talked about that. We also go over consular processing, adjustment of status, affidavit supports. These are things where you don't need a marriage case, a family case all require that. Or if you do an employment case, you still got to do consular processing. So it really, I plan it out as a marriage case just to keep some sort of outline for it, but it touches upon all immigration. I think marriage cases are at the center of an immigration process, so it's so important to understand the marriage case before you go into anything else. So email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com for more information on that. We have office hours built in, one-on-one part of that program, 12 hours of videos plus office hours, and a new office hours for group. And I think those are the best because we sit down as a group, take those questions, and all sorts of practice stuff pops up. It was a success last one. The students are really active, colleagues are really active. I love it. So as you know me, I love talking about immigration. So if you really want to just sit and talk about immigration, continue it. Maybe we'll make a thing where you could join that too, even if you didn't buy the full program. But it's definitely a fun thing to do if you're into talking about immigration, which if you're listening to this, you are. So I guess with that, what else I got to talk about? It's not legal guidance. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It helps us get more attention. And if you want to email me, just email me at info@jqklaw.com. Actually, that's my law firm. info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, which is this company's email address. Okay, so with all that behind us, how far? We're 7 minutes in. We're going to start talking about law. So right now, you're probably getting the phone calls too. Apparently, like a ton of people want the diversity visa lottery, because I've never had this many phone calls about diversity visa lottery. And it opens up a lot of questions and issues about it. First of all, like most immigration attorneys don't do that many immigration diversity visa cases because people don't necessarily hire them. Honestly, I do one, maybe two a year at most on these kind of cases. And the reason is because some weird nuance issues pop up. Some calls I got and some stuff I want to talk about the diversity visa process. One of our colleagues asked me, had this really interesting situation where they have a DV lottery winner, who was born in a country that can't participate in DV lottery because they used immigrant visas too many times to be able to participate in it. But the person was born, but immediately left and was adopted by a family in another country, and they applied for it. They won the lottery based on state of chargeability not being that home country. And it's like, how do you deal with that? And I didn't do the homework, but it's just these fact patterns always pop up. It's like, who would have thought that would have popped up? So that's something to watch out for. And then along with that, they had asked this, but I get asked all the time. This particular question is, if you're going to do adjustment of status on the diversity visa lottery, do you need to fill Form DS-260, which is for consular processing? And it's not clear. They had never made it clear. DV lottery is primarily a Department of State thing, so you think maybe do, maybe they don't. I called the Kentucky KCC, not KFC, but KCC, Kentucky Consular Center, whatever. I always forget what the full name is, but Kentucky. And I talked to the operator. I'm like, do we need to file DS-260? She's like, well, not really, but I'm not sure, but I'll do it, be safe. So in my cases, I just filed the DS-260 with it, which takes more time, is annoying, but it's just better to have it in there. And it's kind of annoying because the DS-260 is like, you fill out stuff, but like it says, where are you living? And there's an end date on there. Well, it's like, I'm still living here. It doesn't make fully sense, but I just say do it to be safe. With the way immigration is, I always go the conservative route. If it's just a matter of filling out an additional form that, it's no harm, no foul in it. So that's what I do. Now, speaking of adjustment of status in that context, is it better to adjust status or do consular processing if the person's here? A lot of the phone calls I'm getting for the winners right now want to do adjustment of status. They're here on tourist visas, but the reality is their number is not going to be coming up anytime soon. And so their student status and their tourist visa status is going to expire anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Like I got a consultation for a person who won the lottery, and they were planning on coming on a tourist visa to visit the U.S. because the family member is having a kid. and they're like, oh no, I won the lottery. Is that immigrant in town? I don't want them to like not let me in. I just want to come and see my sister. And I was like, you know what? Just be real with the CBP. If they ask about it, I doubt they'll even care. I mean, don't come in with like a one-way ticket, and don't come in with like, I don't know, the work. I mean, I asked about their financial situation, and they're like, oh, we have passive income coming in. We're doing okay. So I gotta just keep it real. I mean, that it is what it is, you know. And anyways, he came out of tourist visa. Their number's not going to come up until probably like January, February. They'll get it, but the country they're from, it always gets it on the visa numbers for the visa bulletin. But they're towards the end of it, so there's no way in 6 months their number's going to come up. So I said, just come. It's going to be no big deal, and just do that. But like we have student visa holders, and one of my colleagues asked, should we do adjustment of status for consular processing? And at first I'm like, you know, do consular processing, because with these travel bans and stuff, who knows what's going on. Do adjustment of status, because with travel bans and stuff, who knows what's going on in consular processing. But then I was like, if you do adjustment of status, and now's the time, they just get their number hit, so they have to finish a case by the end of September. With the way biometrics are going and other delays that pop up for getting interviews nowadays, and it's like maybe adjustment of status is too risky. Go to consular processing, they might just, you know, fast forward things and get you in. So then I switched up, and it becomes so hard to like give guidance on these things, because who knows which way to go. Do you do adjustment in consular? Which one's better? It's really hard to say. That biometrics thing kind of pushed it over for me to do consular processing. But you know, I have I filed October adjustment cases, and we got the biometrics in around February for those. So it wasn't too bad, but it's not good either. But those don't have the deadline for visa. I think they give priorities to get the DV case out of the way. But that issue exists. You know, speaking of filings in October, on Twitter, I follow and I've interviewed several times Banis, Wasden Banis. Attorney Wasden is a litigator, and Banis is a new party, is a litigator too. I mean, they've been practicing together now for a year at the firm. But they made a tweet where they said, if you filed an EAD-AP before December 31st, 2020, you know, come join this lawsuit. We're going to sue them, because it shouldn't take more than, I don't know, 2 months or whatever to get that. It is so true. The holdover EAD-AP, when you do adjustment of status, it doesn't make sense for it to take this long. And they were successful in pushing back the government to not require biometrics for, I think, H4 and L2 kind of cases, which is great. But, you know, that really is, we got to sue it. It's so ridiculous that, you know, adjustment case gets done and you never even get the EAD. And people need that. They need to get things up running. They're just hanging out here. It's very disruptive for their lives. Like, I have a case right now, I mean, sort of on this topic, but file an L1 extension, like their third one, with the L2, premium processing. They switched up the rules where they won't adjudicate the L2 derivative with premium processing. So L1 gets approved in like 10 days. And then the L2, it's been a year now, literally 1 year, and we just get an RFE. It says show proof that the L1 holder maintained valid status at the time of filing. Well, and then one of the ways to prove that is to show a valid L1 approval. Well, you can't approve the L2 until the L1's approved, and you internally notice that L1 approval. So what in the world are you talking about and wasting our time to force this person to submit an L1 approval when you already have that in the system? You know that. And it was part of the package too, we sent together. And so, you know, I posted this on Facebook saying it's ridiculous, and some people said, oh, we get this all the time. I've never seen it. One person made a comment which was kind of snotty. It's like, well, do you ever even practice L1s? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm a big time L1 guy. But I never got this. For the same case, I always do extensions. I never file in the L2 derivative proof that the L1 holder is maintaining status, because I guess it's because the premium processing unit used to do them both together, and it's more recent phenomenon that they do them separately that now they're doing this. But it's really stupid and waste of time. And I mean, it took 9 months to get the biometrics for the L2. Thankfully, that's out of the way. But I mean, this person, the L2 lost her job, and it's been taking so long. Their passport is going to expire, which means the L2 extension is going to be limited how much time to get, which means we have to immediately file another L2 extension, which is waste of money and time. But to add insult to injury, we could renew the passport. Maybe I've sent it in and try to, you know, extend the time, because they usually only will approve an I-94 until the expiration of the passport. But the foreign embassy that they're dealing with said, no, we're only issuing a new passport if you show you have valid status. But it's been 9 months, it's been a year, and this case is pending. They're not out of status and an authorized period to stay, so they can't do that. So it's a catch-22. Now, the L1, L2, we filed for adjustment of status. They're an authorized period to stay for that, so the L2 doesn't matter as much anymore. But it's better to have. But it's just why? This is so. It was like a clean case. Everything's good. People are making money, helping the U.S., the government, everything. It's just when you see this kind of stuff, is just it's just so disappointing and obnoxious. But that's the state of affairs that we're dealing with right now. And that's one of the reasons I don't like doing L1s. I love anymore. I love L1s itself, but getting these RFEs was pulling me out of that game. And just it's just pulling me out of that game, man. I can't. It's too annoying having to deal with that. All right. So next thing I want to talk about, emailed me about is, when you come on a tourist visa, a lot of times there's this misunderstanding that says, let's say you come on a tourist visa, you stay the 6 months. If you want to come back again, you have to wait another 6 months outside the United States to balance it out and then come back in. And so, this is like bad information that goes around on Reddit information, like when people are online talking about stuff. There's no rule that says if you were in the United States a certain period of time on a tourist visa, you have to stay outside for a certain period of time. Now, I've heard first line officers of CBP tell people that too, where the client then told me a CBP officer said that, and that's maybe their opinion, and that's how they may internally judge it. So it's not law, but they do whatever they want to do. But I've seen many times, especially Canadians, where they are in the U.S. for 5 months, they go back to Vancouver for a week, and then come back for 5 months, go to Vancouver for a week, and they get away with that for like a year sometimes. So it's not a rule, but that kind of stuff happens. But along with that, always to make sure anyone who comes to your office with the visa, check their I-94, because one thing the officers sometimes do is they try to scare the hell out of the applicant and say, okay, we'll allow you in, but instead of giving me 6 months on a tourist visa, we'll only give you like 2 weeks or something like that. One note, when I talked to CBP years ago, they're like, well, if you're going to give less time, you have to send it, I think, the secondary to do that. Now, I'm not sure if that actually in practice what it is. I remember they said something like that. Because I've seen many times where the first line officer will say this and write in their passport even, 4 weeks or something. But when you go and check the online I-94, it actually says the full 6 months. So always check on that and don't rely on what they say. It's the online I-94 that is the final word. So if they say something in the passport, whatever they say, and the I-94 is different, the I-94 stands. Now, if they make a mistake and put less time on I-94, that could be a problem too. So you need to contact the local port to fix that kind of issue. You don't want that coming back and being a problem with the client. Now, speaking of ports of entry, I have one case we're doing naturalization, and the person is missing travel dates. So it's what I do is usually, because I can't trust the clients, they don't know the exact dates, and trust in a sense that you don't know if they can find it. I go do the online I-94 page and check travel history. You could do that for green card holders. No, there's no I-94, but you can check the travel history. For the last 6 months, off and on, it's not been working, but I had a client work, we did it, but it was missing 3 arrival dates. And I said, okay, go in your travel history and your emails and find your tickets and stuff, but they can't find it. I don't know how they can't find it, but they can't. And so the local CBP office last month said, okay, just email us, we'll find it for you. And I did that, and they responded, no, we can't find it for you. So I said, okay, so now I have to do a FOIA. Now, years ago, I did a FOIA for CBP travel records, and it came back 10 pages, all redacted. And so I gave up doing that because it took like 9 months to get that. So I was like, I was not going to do that. But I think I'm going to do that just to be safe with this client to get the travel history, because they want to file the first day that the physical presence and requirements met. So we need to know the exact dates. So we're going to have to do a FOIA request, and you could do an online FOIA request CBP. Sometimes it's fast. I have CBP requests that I made that have never even come for like years. But it's the FOIA thing itself. I was talking during private office hours with one of the students, like, should you do that? Should you not? Some lawyers have best practices to do FOIA requests for everything. It's not always required. I only do it if I have a feeling for it, or an FBI rap sheet for police reports. It is best practice to do as much as possible. But like I did a USCIS FOIA request for a client that had records, and USCIS came back and said we have no records. It was kind of weird. But if you have any feeling that there's something inconsistent there, you got to do the FOIA request to check that out to be safe. All right, so speaking of N400s and stuff, one of the major headaches of the line of work we do is I-751s, conditional residency, and how long they take. Recently, I got a couple approved in like 7 or 8 months, which is fantastic, but I have one really clean I-751. It's like the perfect case. It's hitting the 2-year mark now, and it's so obnoxious, and the client's so frustrated, but he has N400 pending. He's probably going to be one of those situations where they go to the N400 interview and do the I-751 review there. Now, historically, I would go on the N400. We would sit down, and the officer would say, oh, we can't adjudicate this, or we can't make a final decision because your I-751 is still pending. Then I request a manager to find somebody to do the I-751 interview. Both couples would be there. They do a one-on-one interview with both, and they get done pretty quickly. It was pretty smooth, relatively smooth. I had one recently where the officer of the N400 came and said, listen, I got your file, let's go. Took the applicant, but not the spouse. We had the spouse come too. did a quick I-751. They're like, you're good, prove that, and they unfrauded it, prove that, and we're out. So I was surprised as how smooth it works. So it really just depends on which office you have and who you're dealing with. But this is the both ways work. Now, to be safe, I'd always have the other spouse there, and I prepped them for a full I-751 Stokes-style interview to bring all their documents, updated relationship documents, all that. But I was really happy to see how smooth that went. The client, I scared him probably because I was prepping him so much. They're probably like, this lawyer it's like overdoing it. It was so smooth, but you just never know with this kind of stuff. Now, this is one thing that's really important. I'm getting a lot of emails from prospective clients, and lawyers are all talking about this. The SB1 visa. If clients are stuck outside for COVID, they haven't come back, they're afraid of getting on a flight. Do you do that? I generally don't have a policy of going towards the SB1. It's a personal preference. Some lawyers always do it. I think I don't think it's a smart thing to do, because especially if the person is barely over a year outside and it's under no problems of their own, because of COVID or something like that. Because if you do SB1 and it's denied, then you're screwed. But if you try to enter at the port of entry and deal with CBP, you could talk with them. And in worst case worse, they'll put your removal and you can figure it out. You have a judge make that determination. So it just doesn't make any sense to me to do an SB1 at all. But some colleagues which I respect and I really esteem always do it too. They said they do it, these forms that we talk. So it's a personal preference and depends on a case-by-case basis and all that kind of stuff. But I'll take my chance with CBP instead of dealing with the embassy on SB1. That doesn't make sense, because SB1s would go into administrative processing. You have to do an interview. 2 officers have to approve it. I think I talked with consular officers about it. It's a mess. Sometimes they have to go out bad to try to fix it for you or help you out. Doesn't make any sense to me. Another interesting thing I was posted on the Facebook groups is some person, a colleague said, they used Ask Emma on USCIS.gov, and they were able to schedule an emergency advanced parole info pass appointment using Ask Emma. That's mind-blowing. The system finally works, allegedly. They said screenshots, so hopefully it wasn't just a fluke. But it might be a thing to do. Give that a shot. I thought I'd share that information. I haven't used Ask Emma ever. I usually don't use any of the online services for USCIS, but that may be something to give it a shot, to try. It might be helpful, something to do. So I'm going to be ending this soon. I do want to cover a couple of things. I started, if you're a practicing immigration lawyer in a private bar, I have a private Facebook group page for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. There's about 300 immigration lawyers in there. And one thing I do is I do poll questions. They're asked, like, what is your opinion on this kind of stuff? And I'm going to do like images I want to post in the magazine on this, so you catch it there. But I thought I'd talk about a couple of interesting results I made that was split. I wasn't expecting things to split up so much. I thought the answers were more easier. I'm trying to pull it up right now. So these are, I'm not going to show on the screen. I'm just going to read them off if I could find it. Oh, there we go. And so these are some questions I popped on. There's two I wanted to specifically bring up because it was so interesting. So I had a consultation with a person that started their green card case using Rapid Visa. And when they use Rapid Visa, they filed the I-130 standalone for a person that overstayed, but they didn't file adjustment of status because Rapid Visa said that in the way the client interpreted their website, they wrote it, it says you have to have been making the required I-864P income levels for the last 3 tax returns and currently, so essentially for 4 years for them. And the petitioner, they had only been doing it for a year and a half. So they were, so they had waited a year and a half, 2 years for them to go the full 4 years for filing. So this person at Rapid Visa's recommendation, I guess. I don't know. I didn't. Some of the cases I don't get paperwork. I don't want to get sued by Rapid Visa. But this is what the people told me. They filed the I-130, which was not smart because you file an I-130 when you're out of status and go on the record and just have an I-45 pending. It's not good. But I was like, no. I mean, the way I've been filing cases is if you right now are making the sufficient amount of money and we get a couple pay stubs, you get an employer letter. That's what I submitted on for the most part. Now, mind you, most of my cases are graduate students who just graduated from medical school, law school, engineering, and they're getting their first job. So it's a little bit different. Their job is just going to school, and the first job they get is making $100,000 to $500,000. So it's a switch for most people. But at the very least, I would say, okay, your last tax return and current income, that's enough for me. I would file that. And this client had that. But I asked this question in the group. I said, for the I-864, which do you require of the sponsor's income history? Most recent tax return above the I-864 standard, or like the way to do just the current income or last 3 tax returns above the I-64 standard. So the thing that Rapid Visa generally in their guidelines said. So leave it at that. I don't want to be, maybe they didn't exactly say that. You could check on their website on that. I don't feel like posting what they said. So I'm gonna leave that out to go and check on her. But there was how many votes? There was, let me make sure I legalized everything correctly so I don't get, but like, this is an interpretation client out from the website, and they didn't, for the client, they didn't clearly delineate what it was, for them to understand it well, so they came to me. We had 27 plus 13, 40. We have 47 votes, so that's statistically speaking, the N sample size is good. So 27 votes said they use the most recent tax return and current income. So that was the biggest vote. The second was 13. They used the last 3 tax returns have to be above it. And 7 out of these 40, I do my math right, 30, 40, 47. 7 out of 47 used the way I said, like just using current income. 27 said just current income and last tax return. But 13 people said they do all the tax returns. And if they don't have all the tax returns above the I-64P standard, they get a joint sponsor. So that was an interesting mix. I was not expecting that much of a split on that. So that was interesting. That was very interesting on that, on how it works. Another one that popped up, and where is the results? I think it's still active. Let me go up to my Facebook page. This was a question I posted, and I was surprised by the results as well. Okay, so I asked for the DS-160 and DS-260, we're doing consular processing for a non-immigrant visa. Do you complete the forms based on the information the clients provide? And then, let me tell you what I do. And hats off to Jerry Marshall, a friend in California attorney who's in Nevada. She helped me with this question. I like posting these things. But like when I have a DS-260, I have all the information. I go in the DS-260, I complete it for the client, and just to be more control of it and more customer service, more client service, concierge service. And then I have the applicant review it for accuracy, so don't come back later and say they did a mistake. They give the okay. And then I have them click the submit button. Very rarely do I do it myself. I was scared years ago. Someone scared me into doing like that. So that's the way I have it is I have them submit it, so it's on them and everything like that. So I posted, do you finish it for them or do you have them fill it out? And we got originally I thought everyone has them submitted, but then we had one added that said, no, we don't do that. So we had 17, 16, and 14. So 23, 33, 47. So 47 votes again. So it's interesting. That sample size is good. The most votes, 17 people said client completes it and I review it before they submit it, which saves a lot of time in practice because filling out the DS-260 takes forever. But I think the client kind of feels shortchanged if doing it themselves. So I don't do that. But the most amount of people, 17, said they have the client do it and then they review it. 16 people said they complete it and then tell the client to review it and submit it. But then this was added by one of the users. It wasn't even one of the original poll questions. 14 people said they complete it for the client, have client review it, then they submit. The attorney presses the submit button. Now, the submit button is confusing for people, for clients. I've had to walk people through it. But that was an interesting result that I wasn't expecting that number was like that. It's pretty evenly, triple way split on the different ways that they do it. So, there's a lot more questions I'm going to post in the Immigration Toolbox magazine, and I saved a couple to bring up next time just to have. But it's interesting how different these practices are and how differently people do them. So if you haven't already, check out the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine, the best trade magazine out there for immigration lawyers, the only trade magazine out there. We have, I think, ILA has a journal or something like that. It's more scholarly, but this is a magazine that really breaks down trade issues and has vendors that are related to the practice. One of our readers was talking to, it was like, this is the first time I opened a magazine and the advertisements are directly related and things I need to know about and relationships I need to have. So that was really fascinating. It's like a service doing advertising because it's things you need to know. And this time we have some great sponsors. Let me read a couple of them out to really show my support. And it's interesting what they do. It's just so many. I have to really contact these people, different sponsors. I don't have the time, but there's just so many people we need to be aware of that are doing this. Obviously, DoctorWise, who does business plans, does case management, for management kind of stuff, but also have visabusinessplans.com, who makes business plans for E2 visas, L1s. And I was talking to the owner. We're going to do an interview. He even uses them for O1s. when you're doing entrepreneurial kind of cases, how to business plans for O1. So I was like, well, I didn't even think about that. That's interesting. But he's like, yeah, that's part of the things we do. Obviously, we have ILRC, which we talked about earlier. I keep saying initials, but ILRC is the immigration. I'm just using the ILRC, Immigrant Legal Resource Center, ILRC.org. They have training and they have videos and seminars and books, and it's fantastic. And also FIS. Now FIS, that stands for, and you all know when I say it, but it's Foundation for International Services, Inc. The name doesn't really capture the best things that they do, which is, in addition to translations, which is there, you probably would know them. They're a charter member of NACIS, the Credential Evaluation Program. So if you're, before doing the I-944, if you're doing EB cases and you need credential evaluations to show the person has their degree matches the work history, all that kind of stuff. FIS, Foundation for International Services, great service that does that. And they're a charter member. They've been doing it for a lot of years. They also translate the documents and they have expert opinions. You may need that for NIW. They have rush availability. So it's a really cool service. And I'm so glad that they're have an article, a sponsored article in the magazine that talks about what you should look for when you're doing this kind of stuff. If we get any expert opinion, what are the top 10 tips for success? And I analyze that. It's a great breakdown. So if you're getting involved in those kind of cases, it's good to read and have that knowledge about that. So again, email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox. If you have some questions for me, if you want to learn more about the Champions Freedom Marriage Green Card Case Training Program, get them become a member of Toolbox, all that kind of stuff, or just reach out if you're a listener. I love it hearing that people are listening, because I'm sitting here in a room and talking to myself. It's good to know that people are out there, and so many people over the years have reached out. It's hundreds and hundreds of people. It's a fantastic community. Have probably gonna hit 1,000 people reach out to me anytime now, because it's definitely been at least 500 or 600 people I've reached out over the last couple of years that I could count. And so it's just a wonderful community. So I'm gonna try to do more of these. If you like this format, let me know and I'll do it more. And that's that. God bless everyone. Be safe, and we'll be back with some more material soon. Bye-bye.